This is the story of a notorious serial predator in Midnight Parish, a lively New Orleans district, where 7 women disappeared in 3 years. No suspects, no clues, just one thing in common: black girls. A scream, then silence, until the 7th girl. And this time, Papa Legba was listening. A serial killer who thought he could hunt the helpless, but met his match on the 7th attack. She carried blood older than bullets, a bloodline of shrine keepers, gatekeepers, Legba's chosen. And when she was taken, the crossroads took his soul back.
New Orleans, July 1923. They called him the Whisper Man. Nobody knew his real name. He moved like a shadow, smooth, polite, unnoticed. No fingerprints, no mess, just trophies. Locks of hair, marked photos, sacred beads. His targets, women of color, all connected to ancient spiritual lineages: Haitian, Yoruba, Igbo, Benin. It wasn't random. He was hunting power until he tried to take the 7th girl. Name: Ama Nyarko. Age: 8 years old. Heritage: Ghanaian, of the Achaean people. Bloodline: descendant of shrine guardians, chosen caretakers of the spiritual gates and Vevi knowledge keepers of Papa Legba. Ama was small for her age, delicate even, but not weak. She had rich ebony skin, glowing like oiled mahogany under the sun. Her eyes were large and almond-shaped, with flecks of amber gold that shimmered in the dark, a rare family trait said to come from those blessed by the ancestors. Her hair, thick and coily, was always braided neatly by her grandmother, adorned with tiny cowrie shells and red beads for protection. She wore simple dresses, hand-sewn from Ankara cloth, and carried herself with a calmness that made elders pause and look twice. Ama lived with her grandmother, Nana Ya, on a tiny wooden house on the edge of Midnight Parish, not far from Bayou St. John. The house was modest: tin roof, creaky porch, and always smelling of burning sage and smoked herbs. The walls were lined with jars of dried plants, ancestral masks, and woven cloths bearing ancient symbols. In the backyard stood a small shrine under a mango tree, the center of their daily rituals. It was here that Ama first learned the whispers of the ancestors. They didn't have much, but what they had was sacred: love, protection, legacy. Ama was born under the new moon, a rare time for gatekeepers. By the time she was 5, she could draw Papa Legba's Vevi from memory. She spoke to the spirits not with fear, but with reverence. She had dreams she didn't understand yet, of crossroads and doors, of white wolves and bleeding suns. Her grandmother believed she was the next in line, chosen by Legba himself. Every night her grandmother would sit beside her and whisper old words into her ears, wrapping her mind in centuries of prayers. They didn't speak of spirits as ghosts, but as family. Amma was quiet, but never shy. She wasn't the kind to raise her voice, but when she spoke, people listened. She asked questions other kids didn't. Why do spirits need doors? What happens if you forget your name on the other side? Can the dead still feel love? She loved stories, especially the ones with gods and monsters, but she never feared the monsters. She believed in balance, that darkness served a purpose just like light. She wanted to be a healer someday, to open a shop filled with herbs and stories. She wanted to talk to the forgotten ones, to make the invisible feel seen. Amma had a gift, one even her grandmother couldn't explain. She could hear vavies before they were drawn. She said they hummed like songs in her bones. When she was near danger, she didn't scream. She listened.
It was a Thursday night, late July. The air was thick, slow, like something holding its breath. Inside their little house, Nana Ya was boiling herbs over a coal stove. Amma sat cross-legged on a woven mat, tracing shapes in salt with her fingers. Not just playing, communing. There was a calm in the room, a safety they had built with sweat, blood, and prayer. But that night, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was off. Even the spirits had gone quiet. Even the house, which always creaked like an old friend, held its breath. They say the Whisper Man could move through walls, but really, he moved through doubt. And Nana Ya? She had her first one that night. For a split second, her mind wandered, just one breath too long. She looked out the window, toward the shrine. Something was wrong with the offerings. The ash bowl had turned black. She dropped her spoon, rushed outside barefoot, and that was when he slipped in. Amma looked up from her salt drawing. The house was dark now. The flame had died, but there was no smoke. She stood slowly, head tilted, sensing something else was in the room with her. And then she saw him, not his full form, just a figure in the corner. No eyes, no breath, just presence. The Whisper Man didn't speak. He never did. But Amma, she did. She turned her little head toward him and said, "You don't belong here." And that was when his hand reached out. He touched her shoulder, and instantly his hand burned. Not with fire, but with something deeper. He flinched, not in pain, but in fear. Still, he took her, wrapped her in that cursed coat he always wore, covered her mouth, slipped out the back door, not knowing he had taken a key to a gate he could never close again. Meanwhile, outside, Nana Ya stood frozen in front of the shrine. The wind screamed, the offering bowls shattered, blood dripped from the bark of the mango tree, and she dropped to her knees, whispering every prayer she knew. "Papa Legba, I call you not for favor, but for fire. Open the gate. Take my soul if you must, but do not let her light go out in the dark." But Amma was already gone, taken not just from her home, but from the world as they knew it, and something ancient stirred awake. The crossroads shifted, the air grew heavy, and for the first time in many, many years, Papa Legba stepped through.
Alias, the Whisper Man. Real name, Stephen Fradernor. Age, mid-40s at the time of the 7th abduction. Known for being unseen, unheard, unremembered, until it's too late. He was the kind of man you forget once he passes. Tall, pale, slender but not fragile. Skin like weathered parchment, always slightly gray. His eyes were his only strange feature, lightless. No whites, no color, just a dull fog, like milk stirred with ash. He dressed well, always. Pressed suits, dusty brown overcoat. A wide-brimmed hat tilted just enough to shadow his face. You wouldn't look at him twice, and that was the point. He was made to disappear. He kept a house near St. Charles Avenue, hidden in plain sight. It looked like any other, white picket fence, trimmed hedges, cracked window panes. But the inside? Sterile, cold, wrong. No furniture, just rows of boxes. Inside, locks of hair, small cuttings from each victim's clothes, ritual books written in half-deciphered tongues. In the basement, a shrine, not for worship, but for testing, for defiance. He wasn't praising the spirits, he was challenging them. He was born to a Creole mother and a French merchant father, both devout Catholics but abusive in silence. His mother was superstitious, whispering rosaries over boiling pots, lighting candles during storms. His father mocked her, beat her for it, but the boy watched and listened. As a child, he caught fever often, almost died twice before he was 10, and each time he claimed he saw doors. He whispered, "Doors with eyes." The local priest said he was cursed. His mother said he was blessed. Neither was right. He grew into a man obsessed with control. He didn't want a connection. He wanted dominion. He was quiet, charming when needed, but always calculating. He spoke to women softly, barely above a whisper, made them feel seen, special, until they vanished. He wasn't driven by lust. He wasn't even driven by hatred. He was driven by hunger, not for flesh, but for power. His obsession with old bloodlines. He believed old bloodlines carried unlocked abilities, spiritual blood, ancestral blood. He researched the women he chose, all descended from sacred lines, Vodun priestesses, midwives, healers. He believed if he collected enough of them, 7 to be exact, he could become something more. Not human, not spirit, but a vessel. He wasn't summoning Papa Legba, he was trying to replace him.
What made Fredenor a beast? Two things broke him. The silence of the spirits. For years he tried to summon them. He followed rituals, stole artifacts, spilled blood. But the spirits never came, and he took it as an insult. The seventh girl. She wasn't like the others. She didn't scream. She looked through him. And what she saw terrified him. He thought he was collecting keys. But Amma wasn't a key. She was a lock. And when he touched her, the lock turned.
He brought her to the basement, not tied, not drugged, just carried, wrapped in silence, because she hadn't spoken since he took her. Amma didn't cry, didn't beg. She watched, and he hated that. The basement was cold, stone walls lined with mirrors and symbols. In the center stood a black marble pedestal, not built, but dug up from beneath the house, a relic of old bones and older sins. He laid her down gently, like a man placing a holy book on an altar, then began to prepare the ritual. Candles, salt, sacred beads stolen from a voodoo priestess in Port-au-Prince, 7 strands of hair, 1 from each girl. He placed them in a circle, and then finally, Amma's blood. He cut her palm, small, delicate. She didn't flinch. He began to chant, words stolen from scrolls he never fully understood. Symbols he copied, but never respected. He believed he was summoning power, but he had already awakened wrath. Because with the first drop of blood, the gate opened, but not the one he wanted. The candle flames turned blue. The mirrors began to hiss, glass shaking like trapped lungs. And Amma, she sat up, eyes glowing gold. Her blood fell again, not on the pedestal, but into the cracks of the floor, where it vanished like water into roots. He stepped back, confused. He called her name, even though he didn't know it. And then the walls began to bleed. The house groans, thunder cracks, a door slams upstairs, even though no one is there. Ink poured from the mirrors, forming V's he didn't recognize. The symbols spoke, repeating one phrase, "The gate is inside." He turned to run, but the stairs were gone. The pedestal had grown, stretched into a tall altar, pulsing like flesh. Amma stood atop it now, unmoving, unblinking. Then came the voice. Papa Legba, deep, ragged, smooth like death soaked in honey. "You opened the gate, now pay the toll." A cane striking stone, echoes like thunder rolling in reverse. Doors opening and slamming behind each heartbeat. The Whisper Man fell to his knees, not out of fear, but because his bones bent inward. His tongue blackened, his mouth filled with dirt, fresh, warm grave soil. The mirrors showed not him, but the other 6 women. Their eyes burned through time. Their lips whispered curses in 7 languages. One by one, they stepped forward, Legba and his hound close behind. One touched his forehead, and his eyes went blind. One ran a finger down his spine, and it twisted like rope. One held his hand, and it melted into wax. Another breathed into his ear, and he screamed until blood filled his throat. And then came Amma. She didn't touch him. She only spoke. You cannot take what belongs to the gate. You never summoned the spirits. You summoned judgment. He collapsed, but he didn't die. The pedestal sealed around him like a tomb. His skin hardened. His voice vanished. His body became part of the altar. The next morning, the house stood as it always had. The basement door was gone. But if you leaned close to the floorboards, you could hear whispers, his whispers. And beneath the house, burnt into stone, a single Vivi. Amma's blood still fresh in its lines. Amma moved as if in a trance, locating the exit by instinct. She dragged her limp body, weak from loss of blood, into the cold morning of the town. As she stepped out the door, she collapsed in the yard by the picket fence.
The sun rose heavy that morning, golden but muted, like light passing through smoke. It was a quiet day in Midnight Parish, too quiet. Like the town itself was holding its breath. On Chapel Street, Miss Odette, an old washerwoman who lived 3 doors down, stepped out with her broom. She was halfway through sweeping the porch when she saw something in the yard across the street. Not moving. Small. White cloth stained red. At first, she thought it was a dog or a pile of laundry someone left out. But then it moved, just barely. She crossed the street slow, heart thumping against her ribs, her slippers soaked through the morning dew. And when she got close, she froze. It was a child, a little girl, barefoot, bleeding. Her small hands clutched a broken shell. Miss Odette dropped to her knees. "Baby! Oh, Lord, somebody get help! Somebody call the guards!" Neighbors flooded out in robes and curlers, hands over their mouths. No one recognized the girl until someone whispered, "That's the 7th one. That's the one they said was taken." The child's eyes fluttered open once. Gold flickered, then faded. She passed out. They carried her to the town infirmary. It took 4 hours of active resuscitation just to stabilize her. Doctors said she was drained. They found shallow lacerations on her hands, her legs, but no signs of trauma, except one. On her forehead, a salt-marked veve burned into her skin, not carved, not branded, burned in by light.
Later that afternoon, 2 constables went to the house, the one across the street where she'd crawled from. They expected nothing. The man who lived there was barely seen. The house was still. No sound, no smell. But when they opened the front door, the wind changed. A sudden hot breeze poured out. Inside, it was wrong. Furniture overturned, mirrors covered in ash. And at the back of the house, behind a mirror they hadn't noticed before, was a thin wooden door that led down. The basement was a tomb. In the center stood a black pedestal, cracked in half. Behind it, nailed to the wall, was a figure,
or what was left of one. His face was sunken, skin tight, mummified, as if 1,000 years had passed overnight. His mouth open in a scream, frozen, his hands fused into the stone behind him, and around his head a perfect circle of braided hair, 7 strands, 7 victims. They sealed the house the same day. Priests came, so did women with Bibles and black veils. No one stayed long. The pedestal was buried beneath holy salt, the mirror smashed. But still, every few nights, someone swears they hear something from inside. Not a scream, not a cry, a whisper.
Amma, the living gate. Amma Nyarko didn't die that day. Her body healed, but her spirit, it changed. The blood that had once called out to Papa Legba now echoed him. And as she grew, the vev on her forehead never faded. It only deepened, glowing faintly in the dark, humming at crossroads, pulsing when someone lied. She was no longer just a girl. She had become a door, and the gatekeeper walked with her. As Amma aged, her presence became unshakable. In her teenage years, mirrors cracked when she cried. Wolves would howl near her window during storms. Birds paused mid-flight when she passed beneath them. Men with wicked thoughts forgot their intentions around her. And when she spoke, truth was the only language that came. She never raised her voice. She never needed to. She became a spiritual protector, a truth seer, and eventually, a gatekeeper in human form. People traveled miles to find her. They came broken, possessed, cursed, confused. She didn't offer prayers, she asked questions. And when they left her presence, they either changed or disappeared. Not everyone is meant to return from the crossroads. Amma never married, but she passed her essence through ritual, through chosen daughters, women who could carry the weight of the Vev. Each generation, the mark was passed, not by blood, but by spiritual inheritance. And so today, there are women walking the world, in Lagos, in Harlem, in Port-au-Prince, in Cape Town, who carry the mark of the living gate. You'll know them when you meet them. Their eyes hold storms, their voices still liars. And when they stand at a crossroad, even the spirits wait for permission to pass. Her name became a myth. Amma the Unbroken, Amma of the Bound Flame, Amma of the Gate. In some villages, her story is told like folklore. In others, she is prayed to like a saint. Women light candles at intersections when they feel unsafe. They whisper, "Amma, walk with me. Legba, let her lead." Social workers, lawyers, psychics, revolutionaries. Many don't know it, but they are pieces of Amma's echo. Wherever truth is fought for, wherever injustice hides in shadows, wherever a girl says no and means it, Amma walks. She was never just a girl. She was the answer to a broken oath, the flame at the threshold, the hand that knocked back darkness and said, "You do not pass." And now, when you stand at a crossroad, you may feel a breeze on your neck, a warmth in your chest, a hum beneath your feet. That's her, Amma, the living gate. And behind her, Legba, smiling.